Save the planet. Get ready.
This is Air Twister, a game where you're a princess in a skin-tight rubber outfit who destroys polygon creatures over a giant field of mushrooms, all while dodging fish that move people's houses. It's one of the only rail shooters released in the last few years, and has a tripped-out style, a unique control scheme, and serves as a playable music video for the Queen-esque Dutch sensation, Valencia. More on him later. Hey, pop quiz! What does Shenmue have to do with all of that? That's right, this guy, Yu Suzuki, creator of pioneering titles like Virtua Fighter, Hang On, and Shenmue. He's basically the reason the PlayStation was a 3D console. Virtua Fighter was just that big a deal. Suzuki's also the father of Space Harrier. He's who transformed it from an ill-conceived, technically impossible at the time game about dogfighting into an iconic rail shooter. Space Harrier is one of the most influential games of all time. You might have seen it recently in Judgment, and Hideki Kamiya listed it as the game that got him interested in the industry. So, as you might have noticed, Space Harrier looks a heck of a lot like Air Twister. It's the spiritual successor, what Suzuki envisioned as the perfect, completed form of a game that was limited by, and a product of, its hardware limitations. The unbridled creativity of one of gaming's grandfathers. What could go wrong? Oh, shit. Okay. So, here's what's happening. Suzuki's an innovator. He specifically likes unique controllers. Remember, he's who came up with these sick full-body controllers, the Tycon cabinets. A failed project of his was the Psi-Phi arcade cabinet, an arcade fighting game that was operated primarily via touch controls. You'd tap and drag on the screen to control floating people and shoot energy blasts. The problem was, playing it would burn people's fingers. Gameplay had too long swipes over too rough a surface. It didn't work. Fast forward 10 years, and mobile gaming's still a thing, and Suzuki's still interested in newfangled control schemes, and he's still interested in rail shooters, a genre he helped pioneer. Boom, Air Twister, which he claims to be his ideal entry in the genre. Behold. Air Twister is built around touch controls and was developed for the iPhone. You swipe and drag to help Princess Arch save her planet or something. The game's about tracing swarms of enemies while dodging their attacks. Difficulty ranges from simple, lazy shooting galleries to ridiculous swarms that would make an Osu player blush. I might just be bad, but the end of the game feels impossible to get through without taking chip damage. That's okay though, because the game incentivizes replays with an unlock system that increases your princess's power. You need this for the higher difficulties. Like, you really, really need it. And there's a lot of it. So much. You gotta play a lot of Air Twister to unlock all this. What do you get for your trouble? Don't take damage, extra health. Oh. The game's meant to encourage/necessitate a high level of replayability. Make it something that's easy to pull out in the bus or train, and maybe even a habit. Portable games are a big market in Japan. Turns out riding public transit is boring. You know what's not boring? A surreal, interactive music video! Not in 5-minute bursts, at least. Other than the psychedelic aesthetic and the mobile controls, the real thing that sets Air Twister apart is the soundtrack. Yes, the soundtrack that you've been listening to this whole time by the one and only Valencia! Yeah, Valencia. Valencia, this guy. He's beautiful, right? Look at him. Don't feel bad if you don't know him, though. He was a chart topper in 2 places. The Netherlands, where he's from, and Japan, home of Yu Suzuki. YouTube analytics say you guys don't live there. Really, though, he's a big deal. His aesthetic's really inspired by Queen, as I'm sure you can tell. This one song that sounds like Queen, he knows it sounds like Queen. That's not a dig. It really does sound like Queen. Huge accomplishment. Queen's pretty good. Valencia's cool. He did well enough in Japan that he released a few JP-only albums, like the White Album and Valencia 98 Musical Blue, paraphernalia and dreams of Earth's eventide, whiter future, and darker present, sound spheres from New Diamond to Symphony and artworks to yesterday's Western world rockcraft, under the raging 90s, silver promise of the happy hundreds and the break of the new millennium's hazy, misty dawn. Good album. They call that one Millennium, for short. Anyway, Suzuki's a fan. Valencia's music was popular when he was making games like these, He managed to convince Valencia to come out of retirement for the soundtrack. Valencia re-recorded 5 of his greatest hits for the game, but it's mostly a new album. Lots of swan songs in there. Every cinematic moment in the game aligns to a song, mostly this song. My theory is that since the game's meant to be played on a Japanese train, Suzuki figured people wouldn't notice. Those are fast trips, you know. Air Twister works really well as a 5-minute music video style time waster. It's kind of interesting conceptually, it's pretty, and the music's good. It's built around session play, you can play dress up, and gotta get those upgrades! You might have noticed it doesn't sound like I like this game very much. That's because I don't. Not on the PC at least. I found it more interesting to talk about and to research than to actually play. It's shallow and overpriced, and the control scheme kinda works, but isn't really fun. I recommend Air Twister to anybody with an Apple Arcade sub and anyone who wants to play an interactive Queen album with one hand. Just play Space Harrier instead, though. That game's meant to be beaten without grinding out 100 items. Here's hoping Shenmue 4 is really cool.